Happy Pride Month, everybody. Happy Pride Month. Ooh, I need a little bit more light. Hold on. Let me turn on this lamp right quick. Yeah, that's better. All right. Happy Pride Month. I wanted to do another Let's Talk because it is Pride Month. It is a wonderful, wonderful month for the LGBTQIQA plus community to celebrate themselves and celebrate the pride that they have in being who they are. But also, I wanted to talk a little bit about desirability and fat phobia in this community. I wanted to touch on a little bit of what desirability politics looks like in this community. And I also wanted to talk about fat phobia, my personal experiences with it, my personal experience with desirability, and the issues um, that fat people, especially when you add the intersections of being fat and black, fat and queer, fat and trans, fat and disabled. And then, if you're all of those things, it really can make it really difficult to be um, in this community. Um, so, the first thing I want to talk about really is what does desirability politics look like? Well, that looks like a lot of different things. In the gay community, desirability is really usually cis and white and skinny. Cis, white, and skinny. If you are those three things, you are automatically deemed more desirable because you are those three things. Okay? So, also in the community, able bodied. If you're skinny, white, uh, cis, and able bodied, you are the creme de la creme in this community, which is ridiculous, but them's just the facts. That is the reason why you can go on Grindr and you can see so many people till this day, 2021, will still have no fats, no blacks, no femmes, and no Asians in their bio. And not even just on Grindr, you can find it almost anywhere. So that is the mark of desirability if you are in any of those four categories. If you're all four of those categories, you really are um, the king or the most admired. So that's what desirability is in terms to this community. Now, of course, we can add the other intersections of, okay, you may not be white, but you may be skinny and you may be cis. And so if you're light skinned or if you're not black, that may give you an edge over somebody who is not skinny, black, fat, disabled, trans, and so on and so forth and so forth. I've talked about disability and intersectionality on my channel before. I will link that video if you want to hear that conversation. But we're really going to focus on today. What we're really going to focus on is the desirability of fat phobia. So, what is fat phobia? A lot of people could define it as many different things, but fat phobia is just that. And no, it's not the literal fear of fat people. It's discrimination against fat people because they are fat. It's discrimination against fat people because um, of many stereotypes about fat people. Like all fat people are insert this, all fat people are insert that. So that's what fat phobia is. And fat phobia is rampant in this community. Fat phobia is rampant. Girl, did you just fart? Ooh, my dog just farted. Oh my God. Ooh, ooh, the devil. Um, Fat phobia is not only just rampant in the LGBTQ community, it's also rampant in, the community as large, as a whole. Hold on a second, y'all. It's not clear enough. I know. Okay. I don't know why the light is so bad right now. Hold on. See if I can get this. Light situation fit. Okay. Okay, yeah, that is much better. Okay. Open the blinds a little bit, added some extra light. So now I don't look as dull and washed out. So um what was I talking about? Um so um yeah, fat phobia is not the literal fear of, it is a it's discrimination based on weight. That's exactly what it is. It's discrimination based on weight. So as a fat, black, queer, dark skinned, non binary, trans person, I've experienced my fair share of othering in this community, as I'm sure other people who fit in those intersections have. Um, so when it comes to looking at three facets of it, let's look at how you're viewed, dating and sex, and acceptance. So if we're talking about how you're viewed as a fat person, how you're viewed in this community, most of the time is unfavorably. Um, People don't have a desire for you because you're fat, or they promote this very um, thin, diet centric um, mold that gay men have to fit. You have to be thin, or like Twinkie, or if you're not Twinkie, you need to be muscular, or if you're not muscular, you just have to be not fat. Like, you can't be fat. If you're fat, it's a no go for you. You know what I'm saying? And if you watch movies about gay men or about the LGBTQ community, you will see these conversations come up where they're dieting and they're saying, oh, we're going to go to this event. So that means we have to go on a diet. And it's not even just gay men. You can see it in queer spaces all over, queer female spaces. The Dinah Shore is an event for queer, non-binary, women loving women, NBLW people. Uh, they've also become more inclusive, and they allow all types of people to come to Dinah. But there's a Dinah diet where the women will diet before they go to Dinah because they have to look great in their swimsuits, as if being fat in your swimsuit means you don't look great. You know what I'm saying? So So it's something that is very ingrained in our society. We already live in a society that says fat is bad. When you add the extra component of being queer and being gay, and how it's almost become synonymous with like queer beauty is to be thin or to be tan or to be white or to be muscular, um, it can be very alienating and very hard for people who don't fit in that mold in this community. Now, so that's how they're usually seen. When it comes to dating, of course, fat people are not a monolith. When it comes to dating as a fat person, it can be a mixed bag. But when it comes to um, how people treat you, it's definitely different. There's a subset of the community that are chasers, who they date fat people because they it's a fetish for them. Now, obviously, that's not everybody. I'm talking about one subset of the community who does that. Then there are people who won't date fat people because they don't deem them attractive. Then there are people who don't give a goddamn because it's about who they vibe with. If they vibe with you and you happen to be fat, okay. But it would be a lie to say that even now in 2021 that it's easy as a fat person to date, or that it's easy as a black person to date, or it's easy as a disabled person to date, or it's easy as a like it's not easy, and there are differences. There are differences, and this community tries to paint itself as this like all inclusive um, community, but it's not. Hence, conversations about racism and ableism and biphobia and colorism and Islamophobia, anti-Asian sentiments. Like I could go on. Like the community is not this like come as you are community, and till this day, people still try to feed that ideology, but that's just not the case. And we will never get there, though I don't think it's possible to get there, but that's a whole nother video. But that will never be the case until people stop marketing the gay community as this all-inclusive community where it doesn't matter what color you are, what size you are, what gender you are, what sexuality you are, we all embrace you. It's a lie. It is a lie. And this is why there are communities of color that separate themselves from the bigger white community because they don't feel seen, they don't feel appreciated, and they don't feel validated. That's why there's a need for the Black Gay Pride or an Asian Gay Pride or Islam Gay Pride. Like there's still a necessity for it. But I'm going too much into that. I just wanted to give examples of the intersections, and then so it's how you're seen dating and how you're treated. Like I said, the treatment of fat people in this community can vary. Um, it can vary, but for the most part, this is still a very skinny centric community. So now let's delve in a little bit into my experience being a fat, black, dark skinned, disabled, agender human being. So when it comes to me as a fat person, I am what people will have referred to, and I refer to myself as a small fat. It just means I'm on the smaller edge of fatness. Now, I know that that is a privilege. I also not only am I on the smaller edge of fatness, but my proportions are what people would say like the thick proportions. You know, I've got big boobs, I've got a big butt, I've got big hips. I'm the more acceptable, desirable fat. So my experience being fat versus the experience of somebody who may not fit in that mold can be completely different. And that's why I'm not here speaking for all fat people. I'm just speaking about the things that I've seen being in this community as a fat person in this community, as a fat person in general, and about my experiences. So I am not the fatty like dictionary and speaker of the house. I am just here to talk about my experiences. Now, I'm a small fat. And when it comes to dating and when it comes to desirability, I have not had any extreme fat phobic issues or comments or statements hurled my way within this community. That is a privilege, and I'm very aware of that. That is a privilege, and that's why I try not to take too much space in the fat community because I don't want the only kind of fat you see to be this acceptable version of fat that I've been told that I am and that I recognize that I may be, even though there shouldn't be an acceptable or like a more palatable um, version of fat, but there is. Um, and when it comes to dating, I've not had any issues in terms to that, but that's once again because I am a small fat. I'm deemed more acceptable to look at. And it also goes into the issue that my body is consistently sexualized and has been sexualized since I was a teenager. Um, and that is once again a whole nother conversation. But a lot of the times, people are attracted to me because of the way my proportions look, or because of the fact that I'm on the smaller edge, or I'm not a sloppy fat, which is like disgusting. By the way, I hate that that people would even refer to somebody as sloppy fat, but I've not had those experiences. Um, that doesn't mean I haven't experienced fat phobia in some or colorism or ableism. I've experienced those things. Like I said, I'm fortunate enough to not have had to experience a big brunt of fat phobia in this community. And like I talked about, a lot of it is due to fetishization and this obsession with the curvy body equal, more sexual. And that will be a different conversation I will have next week. Um, but it is a privilege, and I've accepted that. I've accepted that I have this privilege of being 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 in a place where I don't experience some of the harsh realities of being a fat person in the LGBTQIQA community, in a community that covets being thin over everything, you know? Um, so it is a privilege, and I think that as smaller fats, we need to make sure when we're having these conversations, we're letting people know that we're not representing for the whole fat community, and that we're only talking about our experiences, and we're here to uplift and bring attention to the issues that fat people um, deal with in this community. You know what I'm saying? um, it's to the point where um, it almost feels like that we we're two separate communities. There's the I'll use what they use. I was watching a documentary about plus size models, and they said straight size versus plus size. So I'm going to say the straight size community versus the plus size or fat um, community. So it's almost like we're separate. It's almost like we're not even in each other's communities, because oftentimes fat black queer people especially have to create their own spaces. Um, fat queer people create their own spaces, create their own events, because they don't feel validated, and they don't feel seen, and they don't feel attractive, which once again is sad. A hot person is a hot person. Um, but I know that for me, I prefer friendships with other fat queer people. I prefer relationships with other fat queer people. I I prefer kinships with other fat queer people, especially black fat queer people, queer and trans people, because I don't have to deal with some of the issues that I deal with when I'm surrounded by a lot of straight sized people. Um, and it goes to this thing of a great example is that one of my best friends, love her, she is amazing, she's awesome, I love her, I consider her my best friend, but she's thin and I am not. And so being her friend, sometimes, even if this wasn't the case, I always felt like the fat friend, or second up because of that. And it's a common trope that you see in movies, where it's you have the fat friend, or but now they've changed it to it's the fat black friend, or it's the fat black queer friend, or the fat queer friend. Like they always fill that role of the friend. They're almost never the lead role. But anyway, and I used to feel like that when I was being her friend. I don't feel like that now because I am um, super confident in myself, and um, I love me, every single part of me, and no, I don't feel second to anybody anymore. But there was a time that I did, and because of seeing how the reaction she would get when we were out in the queer nightlife and the reactions I would get in the queer nightlife, I realized that yes, there I was experiencing fat phobia because she was deemed more desirable than I because she's skinnier and taller and toned, while I am shorter, fatter, and and thicker in very places and in other places. And so it was hard at first, you know. And I was smaller back then, despite being fatter than her. I was smaller back then. I've actually gained quite a bit of weight in the past couple years, and I'm more confident now at this bigger weight than I was back then when I was smaller. And my weight fluctuates. I go from a little smaller to bigger, and it just goes up, it goes down, it goes up and goes down. My weight has always fluctuated. Um, but I definitely have experienced that degree of fat phobia in the queer community itself. And that goes into another issue within this community and within the society as a whole. A lot of people think that if you're fat, you have to perform femininity, especially in the queer community. That the only time you can be attractive is when you're performing femininity. Because I was not that comfortable with my fat body, I thought I had to perform femininity because it'd be like, oh, they may be fat, but they're fat and put together, or they're fat and pretty, or they're fat and femme. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely went through that phase where I thought I had to perform like high femme, whether that was in drag or just in my everyday life, in order to be deemed attractive. Or I had to bring attention to my breasts or my ass. And this is not just a fat thing, but I'm just speaking about my situation. Um, and I had to make sure my proportions were right and feminine in order to be deemed attractive as a fat person in a fat phobic community, in a fat phobic society. And this is a common issue that a lot of fat people talk about, especially fat women, where they say that they feel like they have to perform femininity in order to be deemed attractive or desirable. And you should not have to perform femininity if you do not want to. If you want to, that's different. But if you feel like you have to, you should not have to be desirable or to be accepted. If you're a fat person who wears a t-shirt and sweats every day, you're a fat person who wears a t-shirt and sweats every day, and you do not have to perform high femininity in order to be deemed acceptable. But once again, I've seen this in this queer community. I've seen it. I've seen it. Yeah, I've experienced it. Like I've been there. In terms of how I present now, I present the way I want to present when I want to present it. But I've stopped thinking that I have to present high femininity in order to be deemed attractive or in order to get validation. You know what I'm saying? So it's definitely something that's still a problem in this community, this ideology of honestly just the ideology of like there's a way to be queer or there's one type of queerness or one look that is desirable. That is still an issue within this community. And though I think that we are getting better, yes, we are getting better, there's still a lot of work to be done. And we need to keep having this conversation. And it's not just fat people who need to be having these conversations. People who are not fat should be talking about this stuff. They should be talking about the pressure to stay thin, the pressure to fit a mold in this community. They should be talking about the problems with diet culture in the community, the problems with drugs in order to lose weight in this community, the problem with fat phobia as a whole in the community. It shouldn't just be fat people saying, oh, this is my experience. You know what I'm saying? Like, there should be other people in the community who are not fat who are speaking on this. And I think that that is a frustration of mine because I notice it's always other fat people talking about this. You know what I'm saying? Like, I need non fat people to talk about these things because it's not in our head. This isn't like it's not in my head. the things I've experienced in this community, even though it's been very low due to my desirability. Um, and by the way, my using quotes isn't me saying, oh, it's not a real thing, but it's one of those things that I'm I'm trying to make sure I let y'all know is a crock to me, like this ideology of I'm more desirable, but it is a thing that's happening, and it is what it is, and I accept it, and I know the privileges that I have being quote unquote desirable. Pretty privilege is real, whether you're pretty for a fat person or just pretty, it's a real thing. Um, and desirability is a real thing. So I really just wanted to come on here and talk a little bit about what I've seen in this community. Um, how I think that it needs to be talked about and talked about and talked about, and talked about it from all types of people, not just fat people, not just fat Black people, not just fat trans people, not just fat disabled people, not just fat dark skinned people. It needs to be talked about um, by everybody in this community. Talk about the interactions you've had with other people who have no fats, no femmes, no blacks, no Asians in their bios. Talk about uh, how the issues you've had with being seen and being validated in this community. So that was really, really all that I wanted to talk about. I was just sitting down today at work uh, and I was thinking about desirability in the queer community, especially during Pride Month when you're seeing a lot of people post more pictures and things, and seeing more Pride related things, seeing more people. I kind of looked in my head and circled in my head and was like, I wish I would see more people who look like me during Pride Month and representing Pride versus still seeing the same skinny bodies or just hearing the same stories from smaller people. So that was honestly what inspired me to do this, to have this conversation. I want to thank you to whoever watched. I appreciate it so much. If you want to check out any of my other Let's Chats, I do have a whole um, playlist for my Let's Chats. I will also link my videos on desirability and disability, disability and the intersection of disability, and any other related videos that might interest you. Check out my socials. Socials. I will have it in the description box. And till next week, I'm really gonna try and do one video weekly. I've not, um, I haven't done any like makeup related content in a while. But I will. I'm trying to get some makeup related content out. I'm just busy with school and work and just trying to get myself together. And I don't have the mental energy as much to cut and edit everything. So, but I am gonna at least try and do one video a week, or at least one every couple weeks, discussing various topics, whether it's queer happenings or politics or a review of some sort. So anyway, I'm going to cap this off so we can have it under 30 minutes. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed, and please do stay gay.